There's a video doing the rounds online that shows Cody using this method, and this is a video from 11 years ago. And now people are saying, well, he claimed that he only could start doing this only with Satori. And this happened before he supposedly met Satori. So now a lot of people are kind of coming to the conclusion, well, is this real? Is this not real? Why? Do you know what I mean? It seems to be contradicting. Carl, what's good, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, man?
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of talk with regards to Sam and Colby's latest, I think they call it Hell Week series, where they spent a week at the Conjuring House, I believe.
Yeah, they've been going all over the place and visiting a lot of places that are supposed to be haunted or abandoned or paranormal. And I know that they do a lot of entertaining style of editing and the way that they approach it. But it's interesting because when they get into it and they invite certain guests on, sometimes things happen on their shows that I find intriguing and compelling to me.
Well, of course, I think some of the latest guests they had were two people by the name of Cody and Satori. Now, Satori I think she's the daughter of Jason Hawes from Ghost Hunters, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and they were on your show, I think, a couple of days ago, or a short while ago, in any case.
Yeah, I've been friends with Cody for quite a long time, since he was actually a kid. Before I got into doing this kind of work in filmmaking and my own kind of research, Cody used to be subscribed to my YouTube channel, and probably, well, he still is, but he was watching my YouTube channel as a little kid.
Yeah.
And he was in the hospital watching and subscribed. And so we've been friends for quite a long time. But yeah, he met Satori and they got doing paranormal investigating together, and one thing led to another, and now they've discovered some interesting stuff about their research and their connection together.
Now, one of the and you'll know better than I do, because I mean we've spoken a few times on the podcast. I am an open-minded skeptic. I do like the paranormal. I cover true crime on my channel as well as the paranormal. I've always been fascinated by the paranormal. I do think there are things in this realm that are kind of beyond our understanding. And yeah, so with regards to what they've discovered, there's something called the knocking method, which and correct me if I'm wrong, they discovered this when they kind of like hold hands or hold each other's wrists or something like that.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, watching over you and Allison.
No way.
Yeah, so basically it delves into this concept that's been around for decades, that you can use your intuition or other items or objects to try and communicate with these unseen dimensions or parallel dimensions, or what they would call the spirit world. And so if you look into the past, you see all different types of attempts to do that, whether it be with like crystal balls or seer stones or Ouija boards or dowsing rods, all different kinds of ways that we try to like augment ourselves to look into the unknown or whatever. And somehow Cody and Satori, while they were doing paranormal investigating, realized that there was something to do with their relationship, where when they held their wrists together, when they held hands, or when Satori would hold on to Cody's wrists, somehow it creates like some electromagnetic field or some biofeedback, or somehow it amplifies their consciousness in the way that it affects them. But it does seem to interface with the environment in a strange way, where suddenly it sounds like someone is running in the room or in the ceiling above them or in the floor. And then it's almost like all they get is knocking and thumping and scratching and these like just basic sounds and noises, almost like there's something within the walls trying to communicate. But they realized that this wasn't just something scary or paranormal, but they could actually communicate with it. So as they stood there and hold hands, they could ask questions, and Satori could count through the letters or talk through the letters of the alphabet and numbers and things, and they could basically decode different names, addresses, information about what people did as a career. And it turns out that all this knocking and thumping is attempts to communicate from this unseen dimension. And once they develop that form of communication, they're getting real information back, to the point that they're finding out information about deceased people in the neighborhood, or sometimes even just down the road, that they take that information and they follow up with and find out that it actually was a real person that passed away maybe 2 years ago or something. And they can go meet the widow of that person, and the information all adds up. So it's really interesting. And where I find it fascinating is how it parallels with the same kind of research that's going into like CE5, this idea of using meditation methods and consciousness to try and contact extraterrestrials in the same way. The Stanford Research Institute and the CIA, through Project Grill Flame and Project Stargate, they were using psychic spies and remote viewers, and even going into different methods of like Scientology, e-meters and decoding and all that, trying to do a similar thing. And so I find it interesting that my friends Cody and Satori kind of stumbled onto this naturally, and they've been able to repeat it. They've been, even though they were on Sam and Colby's show, they have been working on this method and developing it privately and in their own research for a couple of years now. And so it's kind of cool that they're feeling comfortable and confident to do it this publicly now.
Stomp your feet or hit something as loud as you can so we know you're here.
I think with regards to my own skepticism, like I've said numerous times, I don't think we're alone in the universe. I definitely do think there's other intelligent life out there, and that to me just seems logical due to the vastness of the universe, the endless galaxies and stuff that's out there. And I think with regards to some of the stuff that has been kind of brought up on Sam and Colby's channel, I'm not that familiar with Sam and Colby's channel, and I've made that clear in a previous video that I did, where it was a video that I watched after you sent me the link, where I saw they're in the Conjuring House, and 5 minutes in, I saw a photo of the famous Amityville ghost boy photo, and it almost seemed like they claimed that it was their footage.
Because we believe that the thermal picture that we captured last time was Rory. Rory was known to play with April and Cindy on the top floor, and is now the most active spirit up there.
And I did say in my video, well, listen, this is what it seems like. I'm not familiar with their channel. If I'm getting if it's used in a different context, let me know, and yada yada yada. And of course, it was mentioned in a previous video that I hadn't seen.
It is identical to the boy that they depict in the second Conjuring movie.
Yeah,
we'll put them side by side right now, but it is almost too good to be true.
And I kind of had to do not a retraction, because I guess I said, listen, I'm not familiar with their channel, but with some of the stuff that they do, they do the Estes Method, Spirit Box, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit later on. But with the recent videos, the recent week that they spent at the Conjuring House, there's this unofficial war going on online where people are divided. And I'm not here to debunk anything, but I just want to ask, I'm curious, I want to ask questions, and hopefully you can answer some of them. Like I said, I want to believe, I do think there's things going on that is beyond our realm of understanding. And obviously you've delved into this a lot deeper than I have, because you've been out in the field, so to speak. And again, so has Sam and Colby. Now, what a lot of people are saying with regards to Cody and Satori is that it's anything from a toe that can make a clicking sound. Okay, that they're saying, well, that could be what's making the knocking sound. Then others are saying, well, it's someone off camera. I mean, that's the obvious one that a lot of people are saying. But then there's a video doing the rounds online that shows Cody using this method, and this is a video from 11 years ago. And now people are saying, well, he claimed that he only could start doing this only with Satori. And this happened before he supposedly met Satori. So now a lot of people are kind of coming to the conclusion, well, is this real? Is this not real? Why? Do you know what I mean? It seems to be contradicting.
Hi, I'm Cody Ray. I'm a tech specialist with API, and I'm a high school student.
All right. We're going to play a little game if anybody's here. If you can copy what I do, that would be great. So if I knock 2 times, just knock 2 times back at me, all right?
Okay, that's awesome.
All right. Let's try it again.
Excellent. 3 times. Oh my gosh. That is so cool.
Yeah, I think that's pretty easy. If you talk to Cody, if you talk to me too, and said, you know, how did I become a remote viewer? I would say, you know, I definitely had experiences where I experienced remote viewing and what I've like trained and developed, and feel like I can do more intentional now.
Yeah.
But even years ago, you could go back 10 years ago or even into my childhood, I know there was times when I thought I was just daydreaming or using imagination or doodling, and then I was doing sort of predictive remote viewing and other sorts of things that ended up coming true and stuff. And so it's like experiencing it before you realize that you have developed a method, or before you realize that it's a thing, is something that happens, you know, stumbling across stuff. And that's just part of, I think, exploring the research. But I think you're right. You have a valid point. Now, I haven't worked specifically in the same room with Cody and Satori. One of the things that I really want to do is to have these guys come to one of my locations, like Mount Wilson Ranch, where I have control over the setting. I've been researching it for over a year, and they, you know, wouldn't be able to go in there, set anything up, and we would be able to have like cameras and everything to double check all of that. On the other hand, I do find it, if they are faking it, if they were, I would find it very, very kind of crazy and outlandish to actually go through the whole process of doing the Morse code down to the point that you're getting real people's names and information, and then going and talking to widows and stuff. I know that people will do it for TV, that you know, there is shows where psychics will just straight up talk to people about deceased loved ones and stuff. So you know, people are capable of doing that. But in my opinion, from what I know of Cody over the years and just working with him, I just do not see him as somebody that's having somebody hoax or tap his toe or anything like that. He's been a really genuine guy. I've been wrong before, but this is why I really like to go places in person and look for myself. And I've done that in a lot of places and with other people before. So I would love to work with them.
Well, that's the thing. You once told me in the first podcast we did that the best way to gauge whether someone is probably bullshitting or not is by meeting them, by spending time with them. And obviously you have, which is why I'm asking about it. I'm not making any accusations. I'm just saying what's already out there. And it is interesting, particularly that video, because it did seem like he claimed that he could only start doing this with Satori. Then there's also the line when you're saying people will do this for, you know, for a television show or you know, whatever the case may be. Where you kind of draw the line between, and now it's kind of with Sam and Colby, because this argument's going on as well. There's also a great division going on where some people believe them, others don't believe them, but they'll still watch their channel because it's entertaining. And it is entertaining. It's kind of I'm not comparing them to Ghost Adventures, which, I mean, we've spoken about Ghost Adventures and they've been to Mount Wilson Ranch, and it wasn't the best experience, but you know, I'll still watch them sometimes when I'm like really bored. I'll still watch it from time to time just for the entertainment value of it. But now I think the lines kind of get blurred between legitimate paranormal evidence and entertainment. So I think that's what a lot of people are struggling with as well. And the one question that I have is, well, has there ever been a location that where Sam and Colby have not had, you know, some sort of paranormal reaction or this great footage or something like that?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I think just to make kind of a comparison, I think everybody has a different approach in how they want to go through it. And other people, I personally go for the realism. When I'm going on film set, when I'm like at Mount Wilson or Skinwalker Ranch, I'll hit record and I'm trying to get authenticity. I'm trying to almost film when people don't realize my camera's going, so I get the real conversation or the real confusion, or when things happen, so that everybody sees legitimately how it's going. There's a cost to that in the fact that a lot of times my footage comparatively to like Sam and Colby's is boring. It's like slow documentary footage that takes, you know, half hour, 45 minutes, and it's a lot of conversation. I'm not, you know, whereas Sam and Colby have an editing style that's like, it's hard to count to 5 without a camera cut. It's like cut, and there's flash over, cut over, sound effects and all of that. And so it's very stimulating. And so they're targeting a different audience. So they're going more towards like the teen horror, like fans and people like that. But what's interesting is they're going to real places. So this is where it's kind of a hybrid world right now that we live in, where you have like Sam and Colby and they're going in for entertainment purposes, but as they're going in and making like fun haunted house entertainment style videos, what they do is they'll bring in like the local expert or a person who works in the facility for the last 10 years, or the homeowner or property owner. And then sometimes when they're there, even when they're filming and editing this all for their target audience and for their form of entertainment, they still occasionally get things that are interesting or compelling. And so when I even watch like the show The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, which is like the #1 show on History Channel, and to me, I get the same feeling. So I'll be watching 2 or 3 episodes of that show, and sure, it's great, it's entertaining, but all of a sudden it gets real when they bring in the Native American drum circle, and they do like excuse me. Oh, sorry, I just had a weird air bubble. So they all of a sudden bring in like a group of experts that's doing legitimate rituals and real things, tribal magic that's been done for thousands of years, you know, in their heritage, and they bring them all of a sudden in as a guest onto what normally is just like an entertaining show, and they might get real results all of a sudden in that episode. So to me, it's all like that. So I think it just depends on what your taste is. If you want to go totally just like fake, you can go watch like some Discovery Plus show where they're completely hoaxing everything. It's all fabricated and scripted, and they're just running around chasing nothing, you know.
Something's in me or something, dude. Seriously, something's inside of me or something. I don't like this at all right now. I don't know. Look at me, dude.
But I think there is shows like The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, like what I try to do, and there are other locations that go out and you lean into that entertainment side and you edit that way to make it fun. Yeah. But you're still trying to get results. You know, you're still trying to get real accurate findings. I just think that Sam and Colby are targeting a teenage crowd, and so they go for that. If I invited them to come to Mount Wilson Ranch and we filmed all at the same time, the way their videos came out would be totally like, you know, hyped up for that audience and for that crowd.
nice.
Nice.
What's up, guys? It's Sam and Colby.
I choose to do it differently. I choose to go more like a documentary style, but that's just me.
Yeah, but the thing is, and why I want to speak to you about it is because your footage almost seems more credible because it takes out the sensationalism out of it. Same thing with Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, I've had, obviously having Caleb Bench on my podcast a few times, and as well as Chris Bartel, and they're both mutual friends of ours. The fact that it's a TV show, a lot of people still say, well, it can't be real because it's a TV show. Now, the thing is, it's a TV show, but I mean, look, it's not like Brandon Fugel needs the money. Brandon Fugel is going to do just fine without that TV show. So a lot of people, you really have to delve into the whole history of it, which to me makes it more credible, because it does get a little bit boring at times, and that's why it makes it all the more credible. Now,
yeah,
with Sam and Colby, listen, Sam and Colby are doing something right. I've got massive respect for Sam and Colby. And I actually just want to tell the story of, if you don't mind, of how this whole thing with Mount Wilson Ranch, with them going to Mount Wilson Ranch, was actually supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So I had a podcast with a wonderful lady named Becky Vickers, who was on, I think she was on Shock Doc's documentary on Discovery Plus for her involvement with Robert the Doll, or the experience that she had with Robert the Doll. And she was also, and Sam and Colby, she also featured on an episode of theirs at Goatman's Bridge, which is that old haunted bridge in Alton, Texas. And I had her on the podcast to talk about Robert the Doll. And I came up, top of my mind, I said it would be pretty interesting if they can get Robert the Doll and the Annabelle doll in the same room, and just to see what happens, using EVP meters or whatever methods that are out there, just to see what would happen. And I had a friend who knows Tony Spira, who runs the Warren's Occult Museum in Connecticut. And according to him, he pitched the idea. Tony wasn't into it. And that was the end of that. And then I said, well, I've got a friend, Carl Vibe, who does a lot of research at Mount Wilson Ranch. Would they be interested in going there? Then we spoke to their I think Zak is Zak their producer or manager?
Might be both. Yeah.
Yeah. But in any case, so that was set up to happen. And then, of course, Colby was diagnosed with cancer. Big shout out. Well done to him for beating cancer, first of all. And so that this was supposed to go down, which would have been extremely interesting to see firsthand what goes into what they do and what you do.
Yeah, because I think it would be fascinating to take their style and what they're interested in and kind of stand in the corner and watch when it unfolds, because I would be able to come back and validate whether or not they were, they were overreacting, or they retook a few shots or whatever. And I could come back and be able to say, well, when this event unfolded and this started happening, there was a good 2 hours where this was not faked, and I could verify all of that, and we could have it all under controlled situation. And the whole point, wouldn't be to like set it up to try and debunk Sam and Colby. It's like, let's bring them to a legitimate place that was researched for over a decade by Bob Bigelow simultaneously at the same time as Skinwalker Ranch. There's so much there to go off of that it's just like a given that they could come in, be authentic, and we could really get results and in a big way. So I just think it would be a cool opportunity to do it,
I think it will be great. Well, now that he's better, let's hope it does pan out. I would love to see, obviously, I'd love to meet them. I think it's great what they've done. I mean, at the bottom line, they're not harming anyone. I think it's great what they are doing. With any paranormal investigation, I suppose, well, this is for me anyway, unless I'm not physically there, I mean, you're always gonna have questions, and I think that's normal. I think it's a healthy way to look at things. It's certainly not. I'm not calling them out. I'm not trying to debunk what they're doing. But it is interesting, and it's fascinating what they are doing. And yeah, I think by meeting them as well, you'll be able to kind of, as you say, with Satori, you've known him a long time. With Cody, you've known him a long time. It'll be interesting to gauge where they are coming from.
Yeah, I like to give anybody that opportunity. Like, I've had long conversations specifically with Brandon Fugel, and with just this last week, in the last couple of days, I've been on the phone with producers from A&E Networks and History Channel and everything. And this is what's amazing, is that their willingness all the way through the producers, the camera guys, the sound guy, everyone there on set, when they come to Mount Wilson, or when they work with me at least, they're willing in my contracts to let me film all of the behind the scenes. And so they have no fear of getting caught faking. They have no concerns about me catching them setting up a hoax. They have had no hesitations, like, no, we don't want Carl to have his camera going because he might reveal that we're setting this up or making us do a reshoot or anything. It's been kind of refreshing, because to find out that in my phone calls, they're just as exhausted by the criticism of being told that they're faking or that this is staged. When I talk to the producer Dave, like, who makes major shows and even goes and has worked on Curse of Oak Island for episodes and different things, it's like really important, because he's like, I'm here as a cameraman and I'm the producer and I'm doing all this, but we're in it too, and we're like experiencers too. And by the time it goes out onto the network, they have specific needs and timelines, and they want to cram everything in for the commercial breaks and all that stuff. So he goes through pains of the editing and all that as well. But I love giving people that opportunity, like, to, if you're doing it for real and you're really here to film what's going on and to experience it and do real experiments and test it and research, then there shouldn't be any fear, like, of filming the behind the scenes and all the off the cuff and how it really played out, and the camera guys and how everybody's affected and all that. And then if they want to watch the final edited entertainment result, I think that would be really fun and reassuring to, like, even Sam and Colby's audience and Cody and Satori's, to where they could see their fun, entertainment based produced result. But if they wanted to go and watch, several hours of us getting ready that morning and how the whole thing unfolded without all the editing, so you could see, whoa, that really did just happen. Like, they weren't expecting it. To me, I think breaking that fourth wall is a really important part of what needs to start happening with these online creators.
Well, I think it's such a never-ending, especially with regards to the paranormal. It comes in with a built-in skepticism. I've said this before. It's a never-ending rabbit hole, consisting of many factors, including, say, fake TV shows, disinformation. I mean, this goes all the way back to Roswell. And I think that with regards to shows like Skinwalker Ranch, like the Curse of Oak Island, there'll always be people, and this will never be solved. There'll always be people saying, okay, well, if it's so legitimate, why are you guys making a TV show about it? These questions will always be asked. I think it's a very tough niche that Sam and Colby are in, particularly with the paranormal investigations that they do, where it does look, their style of doing it is very reaction based, and you can't fault it. I mean, 10 million subscribers, I mean, those stats speak for themselves. So yeah. Here's what I appreciated about the episode that they did with Cody and Satori specifically, is that they stayed genuine to their audience and their style of editing. It's like, once you get on a freight train and it leaves the station and your audience is used to a certain style, and you try to change that, they'll throw the train off the tracks. And so Sam and Colby have a certain style, and it is extremely successful for them and their brands and sponsors and everything. But there comes a moment where
you see them cut and they sit in front of the camera, they quit all the BS and they're talking direct to the camera and they're like, we left this next segment totally unedited. We didn't hype it up because real stuff actually happened. And I think when you pay attention to their style, when things really did affect them, you see Sam, going outside crying and has an emotional response and all of that resonates. There's those moments in there where you say, hang on, they brought in outside experts and had something occur. And even in the editing, they insisted like, we don't want to make a joke out of this segment. And so we need to not play around right here, so I don't know. That's why it's still important. Like you said, you got to work with people one-on-one and in person to see, but also I know what it's like also to be like in a place where people are not, taking it too seriously and having a good time, and then stuff starts to happen. And so you shift gears too. So,
well, the thing with the Conjuring House is, and this is another thing that people are talking about online, is that the new owners are kind of making this into a tourism thing. They're wearing the little Conjuring House t-shirts and stuff, and that a lot of people are kind of criticizing that angle as well.
I don't really care, honestly. I think that probably comes from people are like, oh, if it's demonic and evil, and if it's just like what the movies are out to be, then what are we doing allowing people and families and kids to go walk through this place because they're going to get hitchhikers or demons attached to them?
Yeah.
But if you really go, there's a lot of stories and folklore and craziness around the place and the story, but really the real research and science is revealing that, it's the same as everywhere else. We're talking about communication with just other people that lived around in the area or the neighborhood or ancestral, which is why, like, when I have similar type paranormal encounters or experiences, when I go to locations around here, they're very indigenous themed. Like they're very, like, I hear drumming, or I hear like, it sounds like a horse, someone on horseback riding behind me, but there's no one there. Weird things like that are like, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in a valley where Native Americans and indigenous people have been here doing rituals for, maybe 10,000 years. And I'm just like down here meditating in the valley. And it's not that it's demons or some monster or something going to come out of a portal and abduct me, or I haven't had anything bad happen. But if you bring in, horror filmmakers and producers, they're definitely going to turn that location into some face peeling Skinwalker horror show. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I think and I was thinking about this the other day, with regards to the Conjuring House, I've never heard of the house before the movie. I've never heard of it. I've been fortunate enough to have Andrea Perrin on my podcast, who actually lived in the house, and the movie's based on their family's experience. Jeez. Andrea, you still okay? Do you want to pause for a second?
Yeah. No.
Good.
It's important to tell this.
Okay. And speaking to her as well, it's pretty interesting what happened there. They think it's some sort of portal where they've actually seen people pointing, from a different time, pointing at them as if they are the spirits. It's interesting. I don't know what I'd do in a situation like that. I've never experienced anything, but I think I would. Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably just bolt.
That is totally similar and relatable to my experiences. I'll go to a place where they say, oh, there's a buried UFO, or there's all these alien abductions and stuff. But what happens to me is I walk past a doorway in a really old building, and as I look into the dark room, I see like a man standing in the corner, and he's dressed like he's from the late 1800s or something. Yeah. Like he doesn't belong there, but he's like half in the couch and half not, like he's half in my reality and half not. And right as I look over, and we literally look at each other, and he's looking at me like, what the hell? Just the same way that I'm looking at him. Like we're both somehow in his timeline, he's seeing a ghost, and I'm in my timeline and I'm seeing a ghost. And I walk past the doorway, and then I step back and look, and there's just nothing there. And that happens like up at Mount Wilson and other places. Sometimes it's just like you see a shadow, and then as soon as you look with your full vision, it's just, there's nothing. It's like somehow just out of view, like our default mode
Yeah.
of what we see and experience in day-to-day reality with our senses are locked into a certain paradigm or a certain prism. And outside of that we perceive as a nothingness or an emptiness is this whole spectrum of the unknown that could be where we go when we die, or where there's all this other information, or where consciousness dwells almost like a static field until you can communicate with it or something. But
yeah, that's the part that's fascinating to me, is this realm which is kind of not understood by us. And what you've basically done is you've digged into this realm and tried to gain some understanding of what it is, what it means, and so forth. Whereas a lot of people, it's very black and white. You know, it's either, oh, we believe, no, we don't believe. There's no middle ground to it. And in my opinion, I think there has to be some middle ground. You have to, you know, just based on the fact that we don't understand everything happening on Earth. I read the other day, we know more about the moon than what's happening in the depths of our oceans. I think the kind of way that you approach it is kind of the right way to approach it. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's just like realizing, taking a hard look at our own limitations and our own relative blindness and subjective blindness and deafness within our reality. It's kind of like coming to terms with, like, if a chicken is kept in a chicken coop its entire life, it doesn't know any concept of the outside world. It doesn't understand when the farmer comes to take its eggs or anything, or where its food comes from. There's a whole vastness of reality outside of its awareness and comprehension, just based on what it is as an animal. And so when you're willing to accept that as a person, that we are full of, you know, vast blind spots and unknowns and all of that, then you start to realize that, like, okay, in the same way that, like, if you have an Xbox or you play computer games or whatever, you know, you store all those games on a hard drive. Like, if you saved all of the games Skyrim and Red Dead Redemption and then Grand Theft Auto and then Starfield or something, and you saved all these games on the same hard drive, you are only accessing and playing through those realities in a linear timeline from a first-person perspective or third-person perspective in the story. But even when you're logged into Skyrim and you're running around like you're a Viking fighting dragons, right along inside your dimension of the universe of your reality on that hard drive is the entire world of Red Dead Redemption, the entire world of Grand Theft Auto, and all of its information and characters. And imagine if, as the main character in Skyrim, you were able to meditate and explore that hard drive with your consciousness and look through those other dimensions and realize that right next to you and over top of you is these whole parallel realities full of cowboys and astronauts and these whole other dimensions that might be like aliens, but really it's all just this wave of informations stored in this field of electricity that you access and experience like a hologram or like a game or whatever. So when you apply that to real life, it would mean that, like, what we consider the past and everything that has occurred before us, or everything that will occur in the future, or that might occur in parallel dimensions or other realities, could exist simultaneously like that and be all around us on that universal hard drive of the universe. And you just have to know how to look into those other dimensions or access those other games, if that makes sense. And
that's actually a very cool way of comparing it. Yeah. I think
so.
Sorry, carry on.
No, you're good. So imagine if you're in the game, you might try to find spots where there's glitching in the coding of the game, where you can clip through the walls and see through the floor into, might call that a portal. Or like Neo in the Matrix, you use your mind to literally escape the illusions of the reality and to break the code itself, and just go like a ghost into the hard drive that way. And so it's just kind of an interesting way of trying to look at all of it.
think as well, if you don't understand something, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I think that's kind of a perspective that I have as well. It's kind of like you use the chickens in the chicken coop example. I've heard people saying, well, ants don't know how a cell phone works. Doesn't mean the cell phone doesn't exist. Doesn't mean the technology doesn't exist. So yeah, now things like, now back to Sam and Colby with regards to the some of the methods they use. Like I said, and I'll say it again, I'm brand new to their channel. It is very entertaining, but stuff like the Estes Method, is that do you know how this works, or what it is, or is it legit? Yeah.
Remind me what the Estes Method is. I probably just can't remember the name.
Okay, so if I recall correctly, you sit in a room with a blindfold on, and I think people ask questions, and then supposedly a spirit kind of speaks through you.
Have you been trapped here for a long time?
It lives here.
Does that mean you don't want to leave? Are you not trapped? Is this your home?
Can I give you a little advice?
No fucking way it said that.
Bye.
Why?
No.
Oh yeah, like actual conjuring.
Yeah,
or channeling. Yeah, where you're channeling and things. I would say that's similar, like it just depends on how far you want to take it. There's other people that go so far that, like, there's a guy who claims that he's channeling an entity called Bashar, where he goes into a trance and clicks his teeth together for a minute, and all of a sudden he talks really fast and in a different inflection. And he claims that he's channeling an entity named Bashar from some other planet or some spaceship above Arizona that like communicates through him and delivers messages. And he has a huge following, people that come. And it sounds funny, but this is similar to how like most religions started, honestly, through this type of method. Buddhism and Hinduism all have different monks and things that are designed to channel and conjure deities into them, and then they speak a message into the Dalai Lama's ear and whispers he's the only one that can hear it, and then the Dalai Lama delivers it to the world or something. And this happens all over the place. Whether it's legitimate or not, I don't know. All I can speak to is like when I have gotten weird with it, when I have tried things, I have explored all kinds of different stuff as far as like doing meditations with this is a crystal ball, a black one. I've got a black one, a clear one. I've studied Enochian magic. I've studied, all the stuff that they did in Solomon's Temple. I've done all different kinds of different stuff. And in the end, there's like a core underneath it that's just, they're all just bells and whistles and tools to try and tune your own mind or your own awareness. They're all like gimmicks in order to get your own head on straight in a way. I can't say like exactly like how other people experience it, but for me, like, let's say if I'm at an ancient petroglyph site and I'm meditating, I start to get immersed in like what you would call like a vision, or what other people would consider channeling. But for me, it's almost like just remote viewing or quantum connecting or psychically tethering with another dimension or something. And then I might see or envision that I'm in front of a campfire or bonfire, and there's some shaman or something speaking to me and I'm getting a message. Now, like if I wanted to, I could, if I was in a group of people or something, I could just start like repeating what I'm feeling and hearing, like they're talking through me, and I'd be like, the spirit says, and I could start doing all of that like that and claim that I'm channeling it. I could legit do that and it would probably work. But the truth is what I do is I just, the way that I handle it, I don't pretend like I'm channeling or like a spirit is inside of me. I don't feel that way personally. I come out of it and it's almost like, wow, I wasn't asleep, but I just legitimately had a full-blown lucid dream. And now I'm back here again. And I remember all of it. I'm going to share what happened to me and what those experiences are. But in the heat of the moment, I don't think, I'm just not compelled to spill all that information out that I'm being told, like it's coming through me, like there's a spirit inside my body. But I can totally see how if somebody wanted to go for it, they could do that. You know, I feel like it's probably that if it's real and actually happening, it's the same phenomenon and people are just going another level with it and getting weird with it and just talking out loud. But at the same time, it is a prime area for people to just make up garbage and just to sit there and ramble off stuff just like you would free associate and like you would improv, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know.
Are you mad that Mackie and Amanda are here?
Get out.
Yo!
Literally every time you ask, she's nice.
Now.
Oh my God.
That's why when I try to do stuff like that with the team, I'm not trying to make myself look better, but this is why like I bring like Brent Stone from Museum of Tarot has like several PhDs and he'll hook my brain up to an EEG scanner and actually record my brain waves. So if I say that I saw something and my eyes were closed the whole time, he can actually record it. You know, he can scan my brain and be like, yeah, his occipital lobe was firing. He was convinced that he was seeing and talking to someone, even though we all witnessed that he was sitting there with his eyes closed the whole time. So they can record that and you can measure it scientifically. It's not just like pretending, you know, like I'm being a puppet for the spirit world. So I like to validate it. I like to try and measure the infrasound and see if there's actually a shift in reality and we can measure it in my brain. And I'm not just imagining it. You know what I mean? I think there's just different approaches to it.
With regards to the scientific method of measuring these things, is there any value in something like an EV, what was it, an EV meter, EVP meter or something? Is that, how does that work?
I think so.
Okay.
You know, in my backpack, I carry an EMF meter. I have an EVP or a spirit box. I have all different types of sensors, night vision, thermal scanners. To me, they're all just like extensions of, because I'm aware of my own limitations. Like I can't see in the dark. So I try to bring night vision and thermal. I can't hear into all these other spectrums with my ears. So I need to bring radios and sensors that can scan through those waves and different things. And other than using your own intuition and your body and your mind, like a sensor, you have to use tools, you know, so there's a lot of gadgets and gimmicks and stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of the really good stuff that works well is like military grade and costs, you know, over $5,000 to get and stuff, and you're never going to get. But there is a lot of homemade gadgets and some of my friends that are working on building more interactive things, because it's just a recent thing really in the last maybe 10 years where people are into try and, you know, go ghost hunting as a amateur and have a device to go do it. So I use radiation, EMF sensors, tri-field meter, all kinds of stuff when I go around, because I never know if it's like a geological radiation or something that could be harmful or something buried, or electrical power lines leaking, or carbon monoxide gas causing hallucinations. And so I try to cover all of that too.
Yeah.
But then when you cover all that, you've got a baseline, and then all of a sudden you're getting like paranormal communication and the device goes off and you hear voices coming through the box and you're covering all that, it can get interesting.
I had an interesting podcast the other day with, are you familiar with Ed and Lorraine Warren?
I think so.
Okay,
the Warrens?
So those paranormal investigators, the Conjuring movies are kind of, you know, they portray
based off of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had their grandson on the podcast, I think it was last week. And he has an interesting perspective where he thinks that he doesn't think demons exist. He thinks ghosts exist, but not demons. And he thinks most of the time it's thought manifestations. Whereas if someone doesn't believe in the supernatural or anything like that, in other words, they don't open themselves up to it, then they're pretty much not going to experience anything. And he basically says that where a lot of people are basically looking for trouble is with, you know, stuff like Ouija boards and, you know, that, and well, admittedly, I've never seen a movie where a Ouija board's been featured and, you know, it never ends well. So I've never touch the Ouija board or anything like that. But with what Cody and Satori are doing as well, you know, when they started doing the ABC thing, to me, my first thought was, well, they basically turned themselves into human Ouija boards. Is there any danger in playing around with Ouija boards, in your opinion?
I personally don't think so. It's just like anything else. I think that if you're going to explore even just different types of transcendental meditation, like I would say, if I was gonna sit like one of my sons in the room and be like, you have a choice. He's got to either learn the headless way meditation methods and get immersed in that for a week, or you need to play with the Ouija board. I would feel better almost, well, it'd be kind of equal, because there's honestly meditation methods and philosophies that I've done that have really unraveled my grip of reality. Like that took me a while to not be completely disassociated, like from my own body and from my life and all kinds of things. And I think there's meditations and things that you can get into where you're altering your states of consciousness and awareness and plunging into things that can change you. And so if you're not into that, if you're not interested or mature enough to explore it, like for your own self-improvement, or if your integrity going into it isn't in alignment or right, if you're trying to do it because you want to get superpowers or magic or hurt people or become a witch or whatever, you're probably going to run into psychological issues and lead to a point where you're hearing voices and experiencing things. Like you said, you're going to start self-fulfilling prophecies and having weird things happen and just be more and more confused, you know.
You're basically, and excuse the language, but you're basically mind fucking yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see it happen all the time. Like even in the like community that I grew up in is just a very predominant Mormon Christian community that you would think is really calm, but there's a lot of people that take it very extreme, even just with normal Christian prayer, to where if they had one weird dream at night, they would be convinced that it's the end of the world, and they would gather their family up and their supplies and flee into the wilderness waiting for doomsday, right? Like if you get certain extreme with mindsets and trying to communicate with other dimensions and exploring things, same applies with Ouija boards, same applies with, I think, religion or any kind of messing with your mind and trying to communicate with other voices or unseen realms. So I think you have to really have a grip on some of that stuff before you get into it like it's a game. Not because you're going to get a demon, not because I think that you're going to open some portal and that your house is going to get haunted, but because when you mess with these things, it's like you're going in and rewiring your own subconscious. You're going in and rearranging the X, Y, and Z of like the ones and zeros of the coding of who you are and your own self-identity with some of that stuff. And so when you play with it, just know what you're doing and know like what you're getting into. It's the same as if you got into some deep meditation or wanted to explore psychedelics or anything. Just be smart, read about it, know what the possibilities are. And if you're curious, I don't think it's going to hurt you, but if you go into it just dumb, you're going to get hurt. Probably you're going to screw your head up.
It certainly is an interesting subject from that perspective, because we don't understand it, or you know, the majority of people don't understand this realm.
It's hard to know. I think typically when people really go into it at an extreme level, like I mentioned, Jack Parsons was into Enochian magic and trying to build rockets out with crystal balls. He ended up like dying in a laboratory explosion in his basement while he was doing it. You know, a lot of people like I mentioned, Mormonism, the founders who got into that, they end up all thrown in prison and murdered. The founders of the magic method of crystal ball looking that Jack Parsons used to build the rockets, that John Dee and Edward Kelly, they both ended up like in feuds and trying to kill each other and in prison and murdered and things like that. So their lives, when you when you delve into it, if you delve into any darkness and go into it like for power, for knowledge, or for gain and all that stuff, I think the lessons are there, whether you're religious or not, that you're just gonna attract things. And it's just like the simple metaphors, like if you think you're trying to obtain this one big bright shiny thing, you're just casting a huge shadow behind you. So be careful, like what you're looking for. What do you really want to get out of it?
Yeah.
I feel like the same way. Like if I bring anything into my house that makes me feel weird, like it's opening a door or a strange feeling inside of me that's bringing a presence or an energy that I don't like, I get rid of it. I don't care if it's a rock or a person or whatever, you know, or a Ouija board. And I think that's up to each person. But I do know that our society and our culture in general is very baked in to have prejudices against things that probably would help them in their life that are not hurtful at all. Like I grew up hearing off and on in my culture that even things like doing yoga were like gonna make you get possessed or open you up to demons, you know. And yoga is now just mainstream like stretching and exercise, you know. But back then it was like yoga is some Buddhist version of positioning your body and you're going to get possessed by a devil, you know. And so it's like, let's be careful about just judging everything when we could really actually learn and improve ourselves with it if we didn't have all of these baked in fears that our parents and grandparents gave us that they might have been wrong about.
No, definitely. I think the message is, well, basically just be open-minded. And yeah, it's going to continue to be a fascinating subject, you know, paranormal as a whole, I think till the end of time. And I mean, at what point for you personally, when will kind of like enough be enough with regards to some of the answers that you are seeking for, and what'll be kind of be justification for your research?
I've had conversations with some of my friends, like the owner at Mount Wilson and my friend Chris Bartell. I personally feel like I've had my answers and I've seen enough. I've experienced what I need to experience. I've gone there. I've done what I need to do. For me, I feel like I'm kind of like, well, I'm still here. And to me, the purpose is now why I'm even still here and why all this even matters, why I'm still even going out and doing what I do, is I turn around and I realize just like the vast majority of people haven't gone down the rabbit hole like I have. And it's not that I know some secret. It's not that I have some carrot on a stick that they don't have that I found or got some answers or I met aliens or God or something like that. Yeah. But just like, I just feel like for my own self, I've got resolution. I feel like I understand the phenomena to where stuff that like Sam and Colby are doing and having fun with it is cool with me. I don't really care. I'm cool with it. And the experiences that they have when they are real, I'll pull them out and go, look what they did, you know, and I'll point that out and give them kudos for that. I feel like that's most people. Most people don't even look. Most people don't even care. And I feel like a lot of the suffering in the world, a lot of the fears people have, a lot of even just stress over paying bills and day-to-day life is all stuff that if people understood this phenomena in a healthier way, people would chill out a lot more. There'd be a lot less fighting, a lot less greediness, a lot less selfishness in the world, because a lot of this is stemmed from this defending our own beliefs, our own idea of reality and where we came from, and these concepts of like of where we're going to go when we die and being afraid of death. And that's really what we're all wrestling with, you know.
I think that's very true. You know, with regards to Sam and Colby, there is division into, you know, are what they're doing is real, you know, isn't it real? I think it means something to different people. I think their content is enjoyable. It's very well done. There's a massive amount of effort that goes into what they do. Like you'll know with in terms of editing and stuff like that. This isn't something that just takes a day and you quickly, you know, push a few buttons on your laptop and then the editing is complete. It's draining at times to do what they do from an editing perspective. So yeah. I think for me, it's I've seen a lot of guys that get really amped up on YouTube that actually specifically make debunking videos about their stuff. It's almost like a jealousy thing because of the success that they've reached. Now there's a need to kind of bring them down, which I suppose is human nature. I mean, it's happened centuries, I suppose, where you want to break people down that are very successful. But I think just see it for what it is. It's enjoyable, whether it's fake or not. Look, I'm not gonna say it's fake. I'm not gonna say it's real. To me, with whatever it is, if I would like to experience it for myself, and like you said, unless you really physically meet people, you can't gauge them. You can't say, you can't say whether they are credible, whether they aren't credible. But I think either way, someone also said also read a comment that said, well, regardless of whether Sam and Colby are legitimate, they have a good message. And that's what kind of matters the most. Their videos brighten up my day, and that's what matters the most. And 100%, I think it's great. Like I said, they're doing something right. They aren't hurting anyone.
Guys, maybe Alice will join too. You never know.
Yes, Alice goes to several of them, except for the real active, scary demon ones.
So this one's not an active, scary demon one?
It is a demon one, I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
Whether they are legitimate or not.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's one of those things where you say, okay, everybody has those choices. If you go into the Conjuring House, you set up your cameras, you film and do the research, and let's say, a door slams in the other room and you film all that. By the time it goes into editing and the whole experience that you're going to deliver to the public, you're trying to cut it down to a certain amount of time, even though you were there a whole day. You're going to give them maybe 15 minutes out of an entire day, like, 10 hours of footage. So you cut all that down, and then you have to start deciding, am I going to color correct the lighting? Because the way that I experienced it was super creepy when I heard that door slam. It was like, holy crap, it startled me. But when I watched the footage back, it's like, it doesn't convey what it was like to be there. So then you start color correcting. You turn the volume up on the bang, because it's in the other room. You didn't have a mic in there. It's not the same. You add music underneath that has violins go, all of a sudden when the door slams. And all you're trying to do is artistically give the viewer what it was like to be there and jam pack that in like a hyped up experience. And Sam and Colby, like I said, are on the train of doing that for teenagers in an entertainment packaging style. So that's where they end up color correcting, sound effects, fast cuts, lighting, all kinds of stuff, and everything to the end. If you're going to go watch their stuff looking for scientific research, you're going to be disappointed, right? But if you don't want all of that, if you don't like the volume turned up, you don't even want music because you want to hear if there's other voices, you want to go back and replay the clip because you're analytical, then you find another researcher or someone else that's doing that type of research.
To call the Crushers channel.
Yeah, go watch me. It's just a totally different style. I don't, the only time I'll color correct, if the lighting is bad and you can't see the petroglyphs on the rock, I'll change the contrast and do all of that to give people the effect of like you were there because the camera didn't get it. But it's another thing when you're really adding music and cuts and all kinds of stuff to really make people feel like they were in there and they feel it right alongside you, and then you push it over the edge to where I don't necessarily want to give people the feeling when they're done watching my show like they're looking around in their bedroom like, oh my gosh, there's a monster under my bed. I like them just to feel like they went on an adventure with me, you know what I mean? But I think other people want the TV show to end and then all of a sudden every single pop and squeak makes them freak out, and it's kind of fun. They want that immersion. It just depends on the artistic style of the filmmakers.
Yeah, it's very true. Very, very true. And I think your channel does a pretty does an amazing job. I mean, you've got over 3 million subscribers. You're obviously doing something right as well. And you do feel like you go on an adventure with your videos because it's, it's out in the field, and just your style of doing it is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, I kind of treat it like I really feel like it's like sounds funny, but it's almost like a father-son, father-daughter thing. Like I'm holding the camera, like I'm taking like my kid along, and they're the whole audience. And so as I'm walking forward, it's almost like I've got my hands on someone's shoulder, like, look at this and look at that. And I'm kind of walking them through it all. And that just guides me through the whole experience of being genuine and trying to make it feel like a person's there. And that when I turn the camera around, it's literally like I'm just explaining things, and it's all just, that's how I approach it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we spoke about that Ghost Adventures did come to Skinwalker, not Skinwalker, to Mount Wilson Ranch, and the experience wasn't great. And he's got that museum in Las Vegas. Have you been to it?
Yeah, I went to the Zak Bagans Museum, went on a tour through there. They don't let you film. I did take a couple of pictures, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. When you go in, they make you take like an oath, like that you're not going to hold them liable. Like you have to read this whole thing they have on the wall out loud and everything, and then go through. But he had real stuff in there. There was artifacts like Native American and indigenous things in there that I was like, I can't believe that it's even legal that he has these. He has a real human severed head. I don't know where he got it, but it looks like a Native American's severed head or something that might have been traded on the black market around Nevada. I don't want to jump to conclusions of where it was, but there was stuff in the museum that was legitimately from strange places or burials and dead people that I couldn't believe that he had in there. One of the weirdest feelings that I got in his museum was Jack, is it Kevorkian? Jack Kevorkian, the guy who would do assisted suicides. They had Kevorkian. He was a guy here in America that would he had a van that patients would come in and lay on a bed in the back, and then he would like carbon monoxide drip them and assisted suicide people. And he performed hundreds of suicides in this van, and they had the van and all this stuff in there. And there was a super potent, strong feeling walking in there. Like you could tell like a lot of people died in that van. It was really weird. I don't know.
Yeah, the actual van.
The actual van in the building on display with the door open. You can see in there with the bed, the gurney, and all of it in there. Yeah, real artifacts all over the place from famous locations and people, crazy stories. I wasn't like all that keen on, there's sections that are all about like serial killers and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, like mentally ill criminals, whatever, but like actual shamanistic artifacts and ritualistic artifacts from Native Americans, burials and things that are on display. I was like, dude, I would not want that stuff in my house, just knowing what I know. But I don't believe in curses or anything. It's just weird to me to have, I don't know, deceased people's spiritual items. To me is strange to collect,
Well, I mean, again, I won't even have a Ouija board at my place, so I can only imagine. And I mean, some people collect stamps, other people collect what he collects. It's weird, but I think it's been a pretty big success. And I heard it's a pretty big place.
Yeah, it's a big building. I was surprised walking around, and the staff there talks about how they have stories all the time. You don't know if it's part of the tour, but they claim, people will pass out or go missing. I had a weird experience when I was looking at the severed head thing. I was in the front of the line. It's like you go in a hallway, go around the end of the display, and then there's the head in this glass case. And then you walk around it and go out this other door. And I was in the front of the line, and it's like single file. And I stopped and looked at it, and it was like I was staring at this head. And then all of a sudden, I was the only one in the room, and I was looking around, And so I was like, oh, where did everybody go? So I walked out the door and I opened it. And the tour guide lady, she's like coming around the hall and she's like, where have you been? And I was like, I was just in there looking at the head. And she said that the whole group had passed me, went out the hall, went into the next room and continued on. And they didn't know where I went. And they realized they were short a person. And I did not realize I was standing there that long. So that was kind of weird.
You were basically in like a trance while the whole group just moved on.
Something. Yeah, I got sucked into staring at this severed head, and then it was like the whole group left. I didn't even realize everybody. To me, it felt like it was like 5 or 10 seconds, but they were looking for me like they were short a guy. Yeah. I don't know what happened. That was the weirdest one for me in there, but I'm kind of sensitive like that. I have weird things happen like that, and I really pay attention, whereas other people might have just thought like they zoned out for a second. It was like I noticed stuff is odd like that. But yeah,
I'll be superstitious about things. Whereas, you know, if you come in the vicinity of a cursed object, then it's going to be in the back of your mind. Well, okay, you know, have I stepped into something that I didn't want to step in, or something like that? So I'll be pretty wary of it. I'd love to go visit that place. It's in Vegas, right? Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's just right in North Vegas.
Yeah. I'd love to check it out. And I mean, look, he's done well for himself. I've kind of, I wouldn't say, I've said a few times he's the most possessed person probably in the history of the world, because he's possessed in every second episode of Ghost Adventures. But I mean, you know, again, the guy's done well.
Stop! Let go. Let it go. Put it down. I'm right here. Let's go.
So, kudos.
Yeah, I think it's same thing. I mean, if you wanted to plunge into it and get really animated about how you're feeling in a creepy spot, you could totally get into it and improv out like you're possessed or something. I've gone in some of the creepiest, scariest places imaginable. And, you know, I have had things happen to my cognition. I've gotten confused and not been able to find my gear. I've felt myself get frustrated and like almost like I can't keep track of my thoughts and stuff like that. But I've never felt like I was possessed or wanted to start yelling or ranting or attacking anybody or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe some people are more susceptible, I guess. But to me, it's just never been a big deal. I've always been able to stay very lucid.
Me too. haven't had any possession.
Yeah, that's why when things do happen to me, I go down through checklists. Like, is there some electrical bleeding coming out of the light fixtures that just dosed me, or radiation or whatever? But when I go into it, or it has synchronicities or some personal thing from my childhood or whatever, then I'm like, hang on.
Yeah.
And I start to pay attention, and it goes different for me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Carl, thank you very much for your time again. Thanks for clarifying a lot of the stuff that I was kind of wondering about, because the thing is, you know, I suppose everyone's got their ideas of what's real, what isn't, and you know, I don't want to make a judgment call on anything, because first of all, I've never done paranormal investigations. I don't have a foot to stand on in the whole debate whether a lot of the stuff is real or not. Like I said, I've never had an experience. If I do have an experience, I can only imagine how I'll react. I keep on thinking I'll tequila comes to mind the whole time. I don't know why.
Tequila?
If I was to see a ghost, I'll probably grab the nearest bottle of tequila and then make a beeline for the door or wherever I am. But I don't know, for some reason that's my go-to.
Yeah, it's good if you come to Mount Wilson then, because you're right in a saloon, so well, it's just all there if you need it.
Yeah. Well, you guys are bolting. I'll be behind the bar and just yeah.
That happens. Yeah, I've walked into the back room and seen a dark shadow thing move across the storage room through the window, and just turned around, went back out, and everybody laughing at me, and I'm like, whoa, you know. So we all do a shot and go in together and take a look.
But you've had some pretty cool footage in that saloon area, because I mean, that saloon area looks like a vintage old Western saloon, you know, with the stairs that go up, and just the whole setup looks very, very old school, if I can put it that way. And you guys have orbs flying around. I think you've had glasses move or something like that.
Yeah, some of it, you know, we've been able to, you know, debunk as just spider webs and bugs and things like that. But other ones we've gone through and analyzed and checked for webs and different things. And these balls of light will come out from almost like where the bartender would stand or something, and they'll float up, change directions, and then they'll zoom right up and get, you know, right past the camera, and it frame by frame by frame, they just like a ball. And even some shots, they look like a donut, like a toroid, you know, like an energy ball. It's weird. And sometimes they'll blink on and off and float through the saloon, and shadow things will move up and down the hall. People will hear sounds like chairs crashing or glasses breaking into the windows and things, and then they'll go in the room and there's nothing. It's the same thing, almost like something from the you know, 100 years ago somehow echoes through into our timeline, because there's a thinness there, or there's a wrinkle somehow on that hard drive where the video games are playing. There's a dent or something, and there's a bleed through, or I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully Sam and Colby can make the trip. I'll definitely try and make the trip for that episode of theirs. And just to, obviously, it'll be great to meet you in person. It'll be great to meet them. And just see what, you know, firsthand what it's all about. Obviously, you've had a lot of experience with Mount Wilson Ranch. We've spoken about it quite a lot, and it'll be very, very interesting. So let's hope it happens.
Yeah, we'll try and get Cody and Satori to come out independently, under control.
Seem like really nice people.
Yeah, we'll check all that out. We'll take them to the settler's cabin, the saloon, the shaman's room, different places. And then, we got to get Sam and Colby to come too. I think it would help them and everybody to have me film the behind the scenes, to go look at all my work and how I work and who I work with. And then I'll break the fourth wall, and they can see how Sam and Colby do it, see how it all happened, and then go watch their edited version and realize, you know, how they make it fun.
You can see me running if something happens.
Yeah. And you ought to come too, so that you can be that other witness and be like, we checked all of this and it happened like it is. And then they cut it down to 5 minutes and made it really exciting.
No, definitely. I think it'll be quite an experience, just from you know, if anything, from a YouTubing standpoint, to just see how you guys go about doing things. Like I said, I'm pretty much, you know, my channel's a year old, and I'm still figuring out a lot of the kinks and stuff like that. So if anything, that'll be pretty cool to see. And Carl, thanks for your time. And we'll obviously keep in touch and just see what happens with regards to that Sam and Colby going to Mount Wilson. But I mean, it'll be cool if just like you said, Cody and Satori obviously go there as well.
Yeah. We'll try and line it up, and you got to come along. It'd be cool.
I'd love to.